A boy gives up his bus seat to a poor woman holding a baby, but the next day, she shows up in a limo and shocks everyone. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. Tyler Anderson shrank into the back of the crowded bus, trying to ignore the laughter of his classmates, while the exhausted woman with the baby balanced precariously in the aisle in front of him. It was nearly 8 in the evening, the bus violently swaying through the poorly lit suburban streets, and Tyler knew that giving up his seat would be more fuel for Jason and his new clique of popular friends' jokes. But something in that woman's gaze, perhaps the same weariness he'd seen in his mother's eyes since his father's death, gave him no choice. He stared at the floor, ears burning with anticipated embarrassment. The woman shifted her weight from one foot to another, the infant bundled against her chest, making soft, whimpering sounds. Her face was lined with fatigue, dark circles prominent beneath her eyes. She reminded him so much of his mom, especially during those first few months after Dad's heart attack, when she'd come home from her double shifts looking like she might collapse. A particularly hard jolt of the bus sent the woman stumbling. That was enough. Tyler stood up, clearing his throat awkwardly. "Ma'am, would you like my seat?" The woman turned to him, surprise momentarily replacing exhaustion on her face. "Oh, thank you. That's very kind," she said, gratitude flooding her voice as she carefully lowered herself into the seat. It happened exactly as he feared. From the middle of the bus came a theatrical groan. "Seriously, Anderson? Playing the hero again?" Jason Matthews' voice carried easily over the bus engine's rumble. Jason, who had been Tyler's best friend until 9th grade, when sports scholarships and popularity had redrawn the social landscape, now led the chorus of snickering that followed. Tyler kept his eyes forward, pretending not to hear, though his cheeks burned hotter. Through his peripheral vision, he could see Jason holding up his phone, the camera flash briefly illuminating the back of the bus. "Yo, check the group chat. Sir Tyler of the city bus, coming to rescue all distressed damsels." Another burst of laughter followed, as Jason's friends hunched over their phones, undoubtedly watching his humiliation spread through the school's social circles. Tyler gripped the overhead rail, swaying with the bus's motion. He'd spent the entire school year perfecting his invisibility, and in one impulsive moment of decency, he'd thrown it all away. Tomorrow would be unbearable. As he stared out the window at the passing streetlights, Tyler noticed a well-dressed woman observing him. Unlike the other adults who typically ignored teenage drama, she was watching with unusual intensity. When their eyes met briefly, she looked down at her phone, typing something quickly. There was something calculated about her attention that made Tyler uneasy. The bus finally reached the terminus, and Tyler waited for most passengers to disembark before making his move. He needed to avoid Jason's group, who would undoubtedly be waiting to continue their mockery. As he stepped onto the sidewalk, however, he felt a light tap on his shoulder. "That was really decent of you, what you did back there." Tyler turned to find Melissa Chen, a quiet girl from his science class. With her messenger bag slung across her chest and her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, she looked as out of place at this late hour as he felt. "Oh, thanks," he mumbled, surprised by the unexpected support. "It wasn't a big deal." "It kind of was," she insisted, falling into step beside him. "Not many people would have done that, especially with, you know." She gestured vaguely toward Jason and his friends, who were clustered under a streetlight ahead. Before Tyler could respond, he noticed the well-dressed woman from the bus standing near the bus shelter, speaking intensely into her phone. Her posture was rigid, her tone all business, a stark contrast to her disheveled appearance from minutes earlier. "Yes, I've identified a perfect candidate," she was saying, her voice carrying in the night air. "The empathy indicators are off the charts. Yes, we'll implement Phase 2 tomorrow." Tyler frowned. Something about her language felt wrong, clinical and corporate. "Do you know her?" Melissa asked, following his gaze. No, but she was, well, if it isn't Sir Tyler. Jason's voice cut through their conversation as he and two of his friends, Derek and Connor, broke away from their group to block Tyler's path. Always trying to be the hero, aren't you, Anderson? Tyler tensed. Just leave it, Jason. You know, Jason continued, stepping closer. I bet you didn't even notice that she stole your wallet while you were playing knight in shining armor. Jason shoved Tyler backward, sending him stumbling against the brick wall of the adjacent building. Check your pockets, genius. A flash of panic shot through Tyler as he instinctively patted his jeans. His wallet was there, but when he checked his jacket pocket where he kept his school ID card, his stomach dropped. Empty. See? Jason smirked triumphantly. That's what happens when you try to be the good guy. You get played. Tyler pushed back, a surge of anger replacing his embarrassment. Back off, Jason. What happened to you? We used to be friends. Yeah, until you got all high and mighty, Jason sneered, shoving Tyler again. The confrontation might have escalated further if Melissa hadn't stepped between them, her phone held high. I'm recording this, she announced, her voice steady despite her evident nervousness. And I'll send it straight to Principal Wyatt if you don't back off right now. Jason froze, his eyes flicking to the phone. School policy on bullying had become strict after last year's incidents. Another documented offense would jeopardize his athletic scholarship prospects. Whatever. You're not worth it, he muttered, backing away. Come on, guys. As they retreated, Jason called over his shoulder, Enjoy having your identity stolen, hero. When they were out of earshot, Tyler exhaled shakily. Thanks for that. Melissa lowered her phone. No problem. Were they right? Did she take something from you? Tyler nodded grimly. My school ID is gone. I should report it, but you don't want to admit Jason was right, Melissa finished for him, understanding in her eyes. Something like that, Tyler admitted. Plus, there was something weird about that woman on the phone. Did you hear what she was saying? Melissa glanced around, but the woman had vanished. No. What did she say? Something about a perfect candidate in Phase 2. It just seemed off. That is strange, Melissa agreed. Maybe you should tell someone? Tell them what? That I have a weird feeling about a stranger? Tyler shook his head. I'll just get a replacement ID tomorrow. They reached the corner where their paths diverged. Well, I go this way, Melissa said, pointing down Cedar Avenue. Be careful, okay? Yeah, you too. Tyler walked the remaining 6 blocks to his house alone, the empty streets giving him too much space to replay the humiliation on the bus and worry about his missing ID. His mom wouldn't be home for hours, night shift at the hospital again, leaving the house dark and silent as he approached. The porch light flickered as he climbed the steps, casting uneven shadows across the peeling paint. Ever since Dad died, home maintenance had fallen to the bottom of their priority list. Tyler made a mental note to fix the light on the weekend. His mom had enough to worry about. He was fishing for his house key when he noticed something in the mailbox. Odd, since mail never came this late. Curious, he reached in and pulled out a plain white envelope with no address or stamp. His name was written across the front in precise, elegant handwriting. Inside was his missing school ID card and a note on heavy cream stationery. Tyler held the note between trembling fingers, reading and rereading the message that made him swallow hard. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., at the school exit. You passed the test. One-time opportunity. Tyler woke with a start, his body drenched in cold sweat despite the warm spring morning. The mysterious note lay on his nightstand where he'd placed it the night before, its elegant script almost mocking him in the early sunlight. He reached for it, half hoping it had been a dream. But the heavy cream stationery felt all too real between his fingers. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., at the school exit. You passed the test. One-time opportunity. His mind raced with possibilities, none of them comforting. Who was testing him? What opportunity? And why did it all feel so sinister? Tyler glanced at the clock. 5:42 a.m. Too early to get ready for school, but too late to fall back asleep. With a resigned sigh, he swung his legs off the bed and padded to his desk, powering up his laptop. If someone was playing games with him, he needed information. The search bar blinked expectantly. After a moment's hesitation, he typed, "Teenagers approached by woman with baby disappearance." The results made his blood run cold. Missing, third local teen vanishes after a special program approach. Parents warn of woman with infant targeting high school students. Police investigating connection between disappearances and mysterious recruitment. Tyler clicked on the first link, his heart hammering against his ribs. The article detailed the disappearance of Ethan Ramirez, a junior from Westlake High just 15 miles away. According to friends, Ethan had mentioned being selected for a special opportunity after helping a woman with a baby. He'd been missing for 23 days. A second article profiled Maya Collins, a sophomore from Ridgeview Prep who vanished 6 weeks ago. The third case involved Daniel Kim, gone for almost 2 months. Both stories mentioned similar circumstances, an encounter with a woman and child, followed by some form of selection or opportunity. Tyler minimized the browser when he heard his mother's key in the front door. She'd be exhausted after her night shift, and he didn't want to worry her with this. Not until he knew more. "Hey, sweetheart," she called wearily as she dropped her keys on the counter. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," he replied, forcing a casual tone. "Big test today." His mother nodded, dark circles prominent beneath her eyes. "I'm going to grab a few hours of sleep. There's leftover lasagna in the fridge for lunch." "Thanks, Mom. Get some rest." As soon as her bedroom door closed, Tyler returned to his research, downloading the news articles to his phone. Whatever was happening, he needed to be prepared. The school hallways felt different that morning, threatening somehow, as if every shadow might conceal someone watching him. Tyler found himself scanning faces, looking for the well-dressed woman from the bus or anyone else who seemed out of place. Between classes, he checked his phone compulsively, rereading the articles about the missing students. Each disappearance had occurred within days of their initial contact. The pattern was unmistakable. During lunch period, Tyler spotted Melissa sitting alone at a corner table, her attention focused on a thick biology textbook. Taking a deep breath, he approached her table. "Mind if I join you?" She looked up, surprise evident in her expression. "Sure." Tyler sat down, unsure how to begin. After an awkward silence, he pulled out his phone. "I need to show you something." Before he could continue, Melissa touched his arm lightly. "If it's about the woman from last night, I already know." Tyler froze. "What?" A faint smile crossed her face. "Elaine isn't just some random woman. She's my aunt." The admission hit Tyler like a physical blow. "Your aunt?" Melissa nodded, her expression brightening with evident pride. "She works for an advanced educational foundation. They identify promising students and offer them opportunities that regular schools can't provide." "Opportunities," Tyler repeated, the word suddenly ominous. "Yes, internships, specialized training, connections to top universities." Her eyes shone with enthusiasm. "She's been doing this for years. She helped my cousin Emma get into MIT at 16. Tyler's mind raced. This wasn't fitting with what he'd found online. "So she tests people by pretending to need help on buses?" Melissa laughed softly. "It's unconventional, I know. But they're looking for more than just academic potential. They want character, empathy, problem-solving under pressure." "And the baby?" "Sometimes props are used in the assessment," she said with a dismissive wave. "It helps them evaluate genuine reactions." Tyler hesitated, unsure whether to show her the articles. Before he could decide, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We are watching you." He nearly dropped the device, glancing around frantically. The cafeteria continued its normal bustle, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being observed. "Is everything okay?" Melissa asked, noticing his sudden pallor. "Yeah, fine," he lied, slipping the phone into his pocket. "I just remembered I need to finish something for next period." As he hurried from the cafeteria, Tyler couldn't help looking back at Melissa, who had already returned to her textbook. Was she part of whatever was happening? Her explanation made sense on the surface, but something felt wrong. From the window of his history class, Tyler spotted it. A sleek black car parked just outside the school gates. Though he couldn't see the driver clearly, the vehicle hadn't been there earlier. Something about its presence, strategic and patient, sent a chill down his spine. When the bell rang, signaling the end of the period, Tyler lingered until most students had left before approaching Mr. Harrington. "Do you know if there's any special program recruiting students from our school? Something exclusive. By invitation only." The history teacher raised an eyebrow. "Not that I'm aware of. Why do you ask?" "Just curious," Tyler replied, trying to sound casual. "Heard rumors." Mr. Harrington shook his head. The administration would have informed faculty about any legitimate programs. "Be careful about unsolicited opportunities, Tyler. If something sounds too good to be true, it usually is," Tyler finished, nodding. "Thanks." With his free period ahead, Tyler headed to the library. The quiet space was nearly empty, perfect for continuing his investigation without interruption. He chose a computer in the corner, positioned, so no one could see his screen without being obvious. A deeper search yielded more concerning results. On a local news site's community forum, several parents had posted about their children being approached by what they called talent scouts, with similar methods. Most described a well-dressed woman, sometimes with a child, who would observe young people in public settings before making contact about exclusive opportunities. Tyler was so engrossed in his reading that he almost missed the photograph accompanying one post, a student wearing a distinctive silver pin shaped like an abstract tree or neural network, the same pin he'd glimpsed on Elaine's lapel in the bus. "Finding anything interesting?" Tyler jumped, nearly knocking over his chair. Melissa stood behind him, a stack of books clutched to her chest, her expression unreadable. "Just research for a paper," he lied, quickly closing the browser tab. Melissa set her books down and pulled up a chair beside him. "Look, I know you're freaked out about the note, but I promise this is legitimate. My aunt has connections to some serious educational institutions." "Then why all the secrecy? Why not approach me directly?" She sighed. "The selection process is particular. They don't want people who are just looking for a shortcut to success. They want to find natural potential." From anyone else, this might have sounded reasonable, but Tyler couldn't shake the articles about missing students from his mind. "I should get going," he said abruptly, gathering his things. "Thanks for the information." As he left the library, Tyler could feel Melissa's eyes on his back. Was she really trying to help, or was this part of whatever game Elaine was playing? The rest of the day passed in a blur of anxiety and paranoia. By the final bell, Tyler had decided to avoid the school exit entirely. Meeting this opportunity seemed increasingly dangerous, especially with what he'd learned. He was retrieving books from his locker when Jason appeared, flanked by Derek and Connor. The hallway had emptied quickly, leaving them uncomfortably alone. "Planning to rescue any more damsels today, Sir Tyler?" Jason sneered, leaning against the adjacent locker. "Not in the mood, Jason," Tyler muttered, trying to move past them. Jason blocked his path, holding up his phone. "That's funny, because according to your social media, you're in a very specific mood." Tyler frowned. "What are you talking about?" "This," Jason said, turning the screen toward him. Tyler stared in disbelief at what appeared to be his social media profile, except he hadn't written any of the recent posts. Someone had created a convincing duplicate account in his name, complete with his profile picture. The most recent update, posted just hours ago, read, Excited to join the Mercer Foundation's Advanced Development Program today. New opportunities. Selected for greatness. I didn't write that, Tyler said, his voice hollow with shock. That's not my account. Sure looks like yours, Derek chimed in. Everyone's talking about how you got selected for some fancy program. Someone hacked me or created a fake profile, Tyler insisted, his mind racing. The Mercer Foundation. Was that what Elaine represented? Right, Jason scoffed. You probably made it up for attention. Tyler's patience snapped. I didn't make anything up. Someone is messing with me, and I think they might be dangerous. The only dangerous thing here is your desperation, Jason laughed, shoving Tyler's shoulder. Tyler pushed back instinctively, harder than he intended. Jason stumbled backward, his expression morphing from mockery to rage. He lunged forward, grabbing Tyler's shirt and slamming him against the lockers with a metallic crash. Students who had lingered nearby began forming a circle, phones raised to capture the fight. Tyler ducked Jason's first swing, years of repressed anger finally bubbling to the surface as he landed a solid punch to Jason's ribs. The fight might have escalated further if a distinctive sound hadn't cut through the chaos, the purr of an expensive engine pulling up to the school's front entrance. Through the crowd, Tyler glimpsed a sleek black limousine stopping at the curb. The same car he'd spotted earlier. Panic flooded his system. They were here for him. Tyler broke free from Jason's grip, shoving through the circle of onlookers. He needed to get away, find another exit. Melissa appeared suddenly in his path, her expression oddly serene despite the chaos. Tyler, wait! Get out of my way, he gasped, trying to move around her. You don't understand, she said, placing a hand on his arm with surprising strength. This is a good thing. Behind him, the crowd parted as the front doors opened. Tyler glanced back, expecting to see Elaine, but instead found himself face to face with a tall, immaculately dressed man in his 50s. A man whose face regularly appeared in business magazines and local news. Tyler Anderson, said Jason's father with a calculating smile that didn't reach his eyes. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Elaine said you passed the character test with distinction. Tyler felt the firm pressure of Mr. Mercer's hand on his shoulder, guiding him toward the limousine where Elaine waited, now dressed in an elegant charcoal suit that bore no resemblance to her appearance on the bus the previous night. Through the dispersing crowd, Tyler caught a glimpse of Jason's face, confusion replacing his earlier anger as he watched his father escort his former friend away. Mr. Anderson, Elaine greeted as Tyler was ushered into the vehicle's plush interior. I'm pleased to formally introduce myself. Elaine Winters, Director of Talent Acquisition at the Mercer Foundation. The door closed with a soft, expensive thunk, sealing Tyler inside as Mr. Mercer settled into the seat opposite. The interior was larger than Tyler had imagined, with leather seats arranged in a conference configuration around a small central table inlaid with screens and controls. Your friend didn't know, Elaine explained, noting Tyler's glance back toward the school where Jason still stood watching. He was simply following instructions from his father to test your reactions under social pressure. You set me up? Tyler's voice cracked with indignation. You had Jason bully me as part of some test. Mr. Mercer smiled thinly. We prefer to call it character assessment. Jason believed he was helping evaluate scholarship candidates. He had no idea about the fuller scope of our program. The limousine pulled away from the curb, gliding silently into traffic. Tyler's heart hammered against his ribs as he realized the doors had automatically locked. What about the missing students? He demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. The ones who disappeared after meeting someone like you? Elaine's eyebrows rose slightly, the only indication of surprise on her otherwise controlled face. You've been researching. I'm impressed with your initiative, if not your sources. She reached for a tablet on the table between them, her manicured fingers tapping the screen before turning it toward Tyler. These are the students you're referring to, I presume? The screen displayed photographs of the three teenagers Tyler had read about: Ethan, Maya, and Daniel. But unlike the anxious school photos from the news articles, these showed them smiling, dressed in smart, casual attire, working in high-tech laboratories or engaged in what appeared to be advanced studies. "They're not missing, Tyler," Mr. Mercer said, his voice taking on a rehearsed quality. "They're thriving in our exclusive campus facility. The perception of their disappearance is unfortunate collateral damage of our necessary discretion." Tyler studied the photos closely, looking for signs of distress or manipulation, but found none obvious enough to confirm his suspicions. "So what exactly is this program?" he asked, glancing between his two captors as the limousine navigated through increasingly unfamiliar parts of the city. Elaine's eyes lit up with genuine enthusiasm. "The Mercer Foundation is pioneering what we call emotional neural mapping. For decades, artificial intelligence development has focused on logical processing and pattern recognition, but the true frontier is emotional intelligence. We're building the first AI with genuine empathy," Mr. Mercer continued. "Not simulated responses based on data patterns, but authentic emotional understanding. To do that, we need to map and model the neural patterns of individuals with exceptional empathic abilities." "Individuals like you," Elaine added, her gaze intense. The technical explanation might have been fascinating under different circumstances, but Tyler couldn't ignore the alarm bells ringing in his mind. They were taking him somewhere without his consent, based on a test he never agreed to take. "And the infant?" Tyler asked. "The one you were holding on the bus?" A smile flickered across Elaine's face. "A sophisticated monitoring device disguised as an infant. It measured your neurological responses in real time, pupil dilation, micro-expressions, even your heart rate from 3 feet away. Your empathic response was extraordinary." Tyler subtly reached for his phone in his pocket, trying to appear casual while activating the screen with his thumb. If he could just send a text to his mom, or even call 911. "Your phone won't work," Mr. Mercer said mildly, noticing the movement. "The vehicle has a signal dampening field. A security measure, nothing sinister." Tyler's fingers froze around the device. Then he remembered the emergency location tracker. His dad had installed it on both their phones after a hiking trip where they'd lost signal. "If you're ever in trouble, this button will send your location to my account," he'd explained. "It uses GPS directly, not cellular networks." Under the pretense of putting his phone away, Tyler pressed the emergency button twice, praying it would work, despite the dampening field. The screen flashed once. A good sign. "I'm still confused about what you want from me," Tyler said, stalling for time. "And why the secrecy? Why not just tell students about this program?" "Most parents and educators are wary of advances that challenge traditional educational paradigms," Elaine replied. "And there's significant competition in the AI sector. Industrial espionage is a constant concern." Mr. Mercer leaned forward. "But more importantly, Tyler, we need participants who demonstrate genuine empathy, not those who perform empathic behaviors because they want the rewards. Your action on the bus was instinctive, authentic. That's invaluable to our research." As they spoke, the landscape outside the tinted windows transformed. The suburban sprawl gave way to industrial zones, then to thickly wooded areas that Tyler didn't recognize, despite having lived in the region his entire life. "Where are we going?" he asked, unable to hide the anxiety in his voice. "Our main research campus," Elaine replied. "About 30 minutes outside the city. It's quite beautiful, designed to balance cutting-edge technology with natural surroundings that promote cognitive well-being." She handed him the tablet again, this time displaying what looked like a university viewbook. Sleek, modern buildings nestled among trees, spacious dormitories, students engaged in various activities. All participants receive full scholarships to any university of their choice upon completion of the program, Mr. Mercer added, plus guaranteed internships at top tech firms, including Mercer Industries. The offer sounded too good to be true because it probably was, Tyler thought. He swiped through the images, searching for any clue about what really happened at this campus. "What about these students?" Tyler asked, stopping on a group photo. "They all look happy." "Most are," Elaine confirmed. "Some experience an adjustment period. It's a significant transition, especially for those who've never been challenged at this level before." Something in her phrasing sent a chill down Tyler's spine. "Adjustment period?" he repeated. Mr. Mercer's phone chimed softly. He glanced at it, then made a brief call. "The new subject is on his way," he said to whoever was on the other end. "Prepare the orientation room accordingly." Subject, not student, not participant. Subject. Tyler noticed a small emblem on the folder Elaine was holding, the same neural network symbol he'd seen on her lapel pin and in the photograph of the missing student. Whatever this organization was, they branded everything with their mark, including, it seemed, the people they recruited. The limousine slowed as it approached a security checkpoint that appeared suddenly among the trees. A high fence stretched in both directions, topped with what Tyler guessed was proximity sensors, rather than barbed wire. Less visible from a distance, but no less effective. Guards in sleek uniforms checked the vehicle briefly before waving it through. As they proceeded up a winding drive, the campus came into view. The buildings matched those in the photos, but Tyler immediately noticed details absent from the glossy images, the subtle but unmistakable security measures integrated into every structure, the cameras disguised as lighting fixtures, the way all paths seemed designed to funnel movement through specific areas. Most tellingly, the students moving between buildings all walked with a particular rhythm, some smiling in a way that seemed rehearsed, others with a vacant expression that reminded Tyler of patients he'd seen when visiting his grandmother at the rehabilitation center, physically present, but somehow disconnected from their surroundings. All wore the same small pin on their collars. "We've arrived," Elaine announced, as the limousine pulled up to the main building, a striking glass and steel structure that would have looked at home on any prestigious university campus. As the vehicle came to a stop, Tyler's attention was drawn to a figure emerging from the main entrance. His blood ran cold as he recognized the person walking confidently down the steps, an employee badge hanging from a lanyard around her neck. The limousine door opened and Tyler found himself unable to move, his eyes fixed on the approaching figure who had stopped in her tracks, shock replacing her professional demeanor as she recognized him in the back seat. "Mom?" he whispered, disbelief washing over him as he watched his mother frozen on the steps, wearing a security badge for the very facility that had just abducted him. While the limousine parks in front of a glass and steel building, Tyler spots something that makes his heart stop. His mother, wearing a security badge, exiting the main entrance as if she worked there for years. Tyler stood frozen, unable to process the sight of his mother wearing a Mercer Foundation security badge. The ground beneath him seemed to shift as pieces of a terrible puzzle clicked into place. Her late-night shifts, the extra money, her vague explanations about consulting work. It wasn't a second nursing job as she'd claimed. "Tyler?" His mother's voice cracked as she hurried down the remaining steps. "What are you doing here?" Before he could respond, Elaine stepped smoothly between them. "Sarah, I see you've already met our newest participant." "Participant?" His mother's eyes widened. "What are you talking about? This is my son." Mr. Mercer emerged from the limousine, his commanding presence drawing attention from staff members passing by. "Actually, Sarah, Tyler was selected through our standard recruitment protocol. Elaine identified him as an exceptional empathy candidate." The color drained from his mother's face. "You recruited my son without telling me? That's not the procedure. I should have been notified immediately." Mom, Tyler interrupted, finding his voice at last. You work for them? For how long? Sarah Anderson's expression contorted with guilt and confusion. 3 years, but... Tyler, this isn't what it looks like. The Foundation does important research. I thought... She turned accusingly to Elaine. You promised any family members would be exempt from field recruitment. Circumstances changed, Elaine replied coolly. Your son displayed exactly the neural patterns our program requires. The opportunity was too valuable to ignore. A muscle twitched in Sarah's jaw. We need to talk, she said to Elaine and Mr. Mercer. Privately. Of course, Mr. Mercer agreed with diplomatic ease. Tyler, why don't you accompany Ms. Winters on the standard orientation tour? Your mother and I have some administrative matters to discuss. I'm not going anywhere without answers, Tyler insisted, stepping toward his mother. What is this place really? What happens to the participants? Elaine placed a firm hand on his shoulder. Your mother helps monitor participant well-being, Tyler. She's part of our ethical oversight team, ensuring everyone receives proper care. Now, shall we begin your tour while they discuss your unique situation? The way she emphasized unique situation sent a chill down Tyler's spine. His mother's conflicted expression told him she wasn't in control here, despite her apparent position. It's okay, Tyler, his mother said finally, though her eyes communicated something different. Go with Elaine. I'll find you as soon as I'm done. Reluctantly, Tyler allowed Elaine to guide him toward the main building, glancing back to see his mother engaged in what appeared to be a tense conversation with Mr. Mercer. The Mercer Foundation for Cognitive Advancement, Elaine announced as they entered a soaring atrium filled with natural light. We're developing the next generation of artificial intelligence by studying human empathy in its purest form. Tyler barely registered the elegant architecture or the impressive technology on display in glass-walled laboratories. His mind raced with questions, chief among them. Was his mother a willing participant in whatever was happening here? This is our primary education center, Elaine continued, leading him through a corridor into what resembled a high-tech college campus. Participants take personalized courses based on their aptitudes while contributing to our research programs. Students moved between classrooms with tablets and digital notebooks. They seemed normal enough at first glance, but Tyler noticed subtle differences. Their coordinated movements, the uniform blankness in some of their expressions, the way they responded to staff members with rehearsed precision. These students, Tyler said carefully, they all volunteered to be here? Elaine's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. They were selected, just like you. Most adapt quickly to our environment. And those who don't? They require additional support during the transition period, she replied smoothly. Come. I'd like to introduce you to someone. She led Tyler to a bright common area where several teenagers were engaged in what appeared to be a discussion group. One young man looked up as they approached, and Elaine gestured for him to join them. Tyler, this is Aiden. He's been with us for 6 months and is showing exceptional progress. Aiden extended his hand with precise movements. Welcome to the Foundation, he said, his voice pleasant but oddly flat. You'll find your time here both productive and fulfilling. Tyler shook his hand, noting the slight delay between Aiden's smile and the expression reaching his eyes, like an actor who had rehearsed the motion without understanding its meaning. Aiden was one of our highest empathy scores last year, Elaine explained. He's now contributing to our advanced emotion mapping protocols. It's very rewarding work, Aiden added, his cadence slightly mechanical. The initial adjustment period can be challenging, but afterward everything becomes clear. What exactly happens during this adjustment period? Tyler asked, unable to mask the suspicion in his voice. Before Aiden could answer, a lab-coated woman approached with a tablet. Ms. Winters, you're needed in conference room B. Mr. Mercer has requested your input on the new protocol. Thank you, Dr. Chen. Elaine turned to Tyler with practiced regret. I must attend to this. Aiden, perhaps you could continue showing Tyler around. The standard orientation route. Of course, Ms. Winters, Aiden replied with that same rehearsed smile. As Elaine walked away, Tyler saw his chance. Aiden, what really happens here? What did they do to you during the adjustment? Something flickered behind Aiden's eyes, a momentary struggle, quickly suppressed. The neural mapping process allows us to contribute to the advancement of empathic AI, he recited. Once your emotional architecture is fully integrated into the system, you'll understand your purpose. Integrated? Tyler pressed. What does that mean? Aiden blinked rapidly as if fighting against programming. They map your emotional responses, every connection, every neural pathway related to empathy. The first phase is intensive. Does it hurt? Aiden's facade cracked briefly. I can't remember much from before, but sometimes I dream about screaming. His expression smoothed over almost immediately. Those are adjustment anomalies. They'll fade with time. Tyler felt sick. Whatever was happening here was far worse than he'd imagined. He needed to find his mother and get out. Where are the bathrooms? He asked, feigning casualness. Down that hallway, Aiden replied, pointing. I'll wait here. Tyler nodded and walked deliberately toward the indicated corridor, but as soon as he rounded the corner, he broke into a run. The building's layout was confusing, intentionally so, he suspected, but he had to find his mother before they realized he'd slipped away. He ducked into an empty classroom when he heard footsteps, peering cautiously around the doorframe to see 2 security guards passing by. Once clear, he continued his search, trying doors and scanning for any sign of his mother or Mr. Mercer. A door marked Administrative Archives yielded to his push. Inside, rows of filing cabinets lined the walls, alongside digital workstations. Tyler moved quickly to the nearest computer terminal. If he could access their system, maybe he could find information about what they were really doing, and evidence of how to stop it. To his surprise, the terminal was unlocked, displaying a personnel file someone had left in a hurry. He scanned the open document, blood running cold as he read. Subject 37, Anderson Tyler. Primary phase assessment. Profile exceptional empathic neural architecture. Category 5 response patterns consistent with optimal transfer potential. Recommendation: expedited integration schedule. Subject's natural empathic responses are ideal for complete neural mapping. Note: maternal relationship presents potential compliance issues. Consider separation protocols if resistance encountered. Tyler backed away from the screen, his heart pounding. They weren't just studying his empathy, they were planning to extract it somehow, to transfer it. The clinical language couldn't disguise the horror of what they intended. He had to find his mother now. Slipping back into the hallway, Tyler navigated toward what he hoped was the administrative section of the building. Rounding a corner, he finally spotted her through a glass-walled conference room, engaged in what appeared to be a heated argument with both Elaine and Mr. Mercer. Tyler crept closer, staying out of sight, but near enough to hear their raised voices. Not what I signed up for, his mother was saying, her face flushed with anger. Your original research was non-invasive. Now you're talking about complete neural extraction. The technology evolved, Sarah, Mr. Mercer replied coldly. As did our understanding of what's necessary to create truly empathic AI. By destroying these children's capacity for emotion, by turning my son into an empty shell, she slammed a folder onto the table. These acceptable neural degradation reports, did you think I wouldn't find them? That I wouldn't notice what's happening to these kids? Elaine stepped forward. You knew the broader implications of our work. You've been compensated quite generously for your participation. I was told we were mapping emotional responses, not extracting them permanently. His mother's voice broke. I'm taking Tyler home. Now. Mr. Mercer's expression hardened. "I'm afraid that's not possible. Your son's neural architecture is precisely what our primary system needs to reach completion. The board has already approved the full extraction protocol." "You can't do this," Sarah whispered, horror evident in her voice. "He's 17. I never consented to this level of intervention." "Actually," Elaine interjected, sliding a document across the table, "you did. Section 12, Paragraph 4 of your employment contract grants the Foundation complete research access to immediate family members in exchange for your financial accommodations." Tyler watched his mother scan the document, her hands trembling. "This is buried in legal jargon I never would have agreed if I'd understood." "Nevertheless, you signed," Mr. Mercer cut in. "Tyler will begin primary extraction tomorrow. You can either support this transition or be removed from the facility. Your choice, Sarah." The blood drained from his mother's face. In that moment, Tyler knew with absolute certainty that she hadn't understood what she was involving herself in, that her desperation after his father's death had led her to accept help without recognizing its true cost. He needed to interrupt this conversation to reach his mother before they took further action. But as he stepped forward, a hand clamped firmly over his mouth from behind. "Observing without permission is against protocol," whispered a security guard, his other arm locking around Tyler's chest. "Let's get you to proper orientation, shall we?" The technician had barely left when the door opened again. Tyler prepared to fight but relaxed when he saw Melissa, breathless and urgent. "I activated the alarm to find you. We have 5 minutes before they realize there's no actual fire." The security guard marched Tyler down a sterile corridor, one hand firmly gripping his upper arm. Despite his attempts to break free, the man's hold remained unrelenting, his expression impassive beneath the brim of his uniform cap. "Protocol requires all new participants to complete orientation before exploring the facility," the guard stated, his tone mechanical as they approached a door labeled Integration Primary. Tyler's mind raced. His mother had confirmed his worst fears. This wasn't an educational program, but something far more sinister. Whatever neural extraction meant, it sounded permanent and devastating. The guard scanned his badge, and the door slid open to reveal a room dominated by complex machinery. At its center stood what resembled a medical chair, surrounded by monitoring equipment and neural scanning devices, arranged in a semicircle. The antiseptic smell reminded Tyler of hospitals, but the setup looked more like something from a dystopian movie. A technician in a white lab coat looked up from adjusting a series of electrodes. "This is the new subject?" he asked, casually, barely glancing at Tyler's distressed expression. "Found him wandering unauthorized. Ms. Winters requested immediate processing," the guard replied. "Perfect timing," the technician nodded. "I was just calibrating for the preliminary scan." He gestured to the chair. "Take a seat, please. We'll get you prepped for your initial mapping session." When Tyler hesitated, the guard applied firm pressure to his shoulder. With no viable escape route, Tyler reluctantly sat in the chair, its padded surface unexpectedly comfortable, a bizarre contrast to its evident purpose. "Good," the technician said, approaching with a cluster of small sensors. "This is just a preliminary scan, completely non-invasive." As the man attached electrodes to Tyler's temples, something in his casual demeanor provided an opportunity. If the technician believed Tyler understood what was happening, perhaps he'd reveal more about the process. "How long does the full mapping take?" Tyler asked, feigning calm acceptance. The technician seemed pleased by his apparent cooperation. "Smart to ask questions. Much easier when participants understand the process." He adjusted a monitor before continuing. "The preliminary scan takes about 30 minutes. We map your basic neural architecture, focusing on the empathy centers. The full extraction process is implemented gradually over several weeks." Tyler's mouth went dry. "Extraction?" "Yes, that's where the real magic happens," the technician explained, preoccupied with the equipment settings. We've developed a method to transfer empathic neural patterns directly into our AI system. Your natural empathy responses, the way your brain processes emotional data, become the foundation for the machine's emotional intelligence. And what happens to me afterward? Tyler asked, dreading the answer. The technician glanced at him, surprised by the question. Well, most subjects adapt after a few sessions. The initial emotional emptiness is merely a temporary side effect, in most cases anyway. What do you mean, emptiness? Once we've mapped and transferred the neural pathways, those connections are essentially repurposed, he explained, with clinical detachment. Think of it as donating a part of your brain function to the greater good. The system needs authentic emotional architecture to truly understand human feelings. Tyler fought to keep his expression neutral despite the horror washing over him. Do you mean participants lose their ability to feel emotions? Not all emotions, the technician corrected, as if this were a reasonable clarification. Just the deeper empathic responses. Basic emotional function typically remains, though somewhat flattened. That's why Aiden seems a bit mechanical now. He was our most successful complete transfer to date, gave nearly 90% of his empathic architecture to the system. The casual way he described permanently damaging a teenager's brain made Tyler's stomach turn. And everyone here has gone through this? Different degrees of extraction based on compatibility. Some only provide partial mapping. Those are the ones who still seem mostly normal. Others, like Aiden, qualified for complete transfer. The technician looked at Tyler with professional interest. Your scans show exceptional promise. Mr. Mercer is very excited about your integration. That's good to know, Tyler managed, while frantically searching for any way out of his situation. The technician nodded toward the guard. I need to grab the specific protocols for his profile type. Brain architecture like his requires customized parameters. Keep an eye on him, will you? Yes, sir, the guard replied, positioning himself by the door as the technician left the room. Alone with the guard, Tyler tested the restraints that had automatically secured his wrists to the chair. Firm, but not yet completely tightened. If he could just create a distraction. Before he could formulate a plan, the door opened again. Tyler tensed, expecting the technician's return, but instead another teenager entered the room with slow, deliberate movements. You're new, the boy said flatly, his vacant eyes fixing on Tyler. I'm Aiden. I've been assigned to orient you on post-transfer adaptation. The guard nodded in recognition. Mr. Hansen is authorized for peer counseling. I'll wait outside. Call if there's any issue. He stepped into the hallway, the door closing behind him. Tyler studied Aiden carefully. The boy's movements were unnaturally precise, his expression blank, except for occasional simulated smiles that never reached his eyes. This was what awaited him if he didn't escape. A hollowed-out version of himself, going through the motions of humanity without truly experiencing it. Aiden, Tyler said carefully, what happened to you here? Aiden blinked slowly. I completed the full integration protocol. My empathic architecture now forms the secondary emotional core of the Mercer AI system. And how do you feel about that? Something flickered across Aiden's face, a momentary struggle, as if some buried part of him was fighting to surface. I don't feel much anymore, he admitted, his programmed cadence briefly faltering. They said that would normalize, but it's been 6 months and... He trailed off, momentarily confused, before his expression reset to its blank default. The adjustment period varies by subject. Do you remember what it was like? The extraction? Aiden's eyes unfocused slightly. I don't... Memory access to that period is limited, but sometimes when I sleep, I hear... His breathing quickened, the first genuine emotional response Tyler had seen from him. I dream about screaming, my screaming, but that's an adjustment anomaly. They'll fade with time. Tyler's blood ran cold. Whatever they did to these kids wasn't just invasive. It was traumatic enough that their minds blocked the memories. "Aiden, do you want to get out of here?" Tyler asked quietly. The question seemed to short-circuit something in Aiden's programming. He stared blankly for several seconds before responding. "That query is invalid. This is where I belong now. My purpose is to assist in neural architecture advancement. But if you could leave..." "Function is optimal here," Aiden interrupted, his voice suddenly firmer. "Extraction is necessary for progress. You'll understand after your initial mapping." Tyler realized with sinking despair that whatever they'd done to Aiden had gone too deep. He couldn't even conceive of escaping anymore. The Foundation had effectively removed not just his empathy, but his very sense of self-determination. The technician would return any minute. Tyler struggled against the restraints again, searching desperately for anything that might help him escape. The monitoring equipment surrounding him beeped softly, recording his escalating stress levels. On the nearest computer screen, Tyler could see files about other subjects. Straining to read them from his position, he glimpsed photos showing the progression of teens from their arrival to post-extraction. The before and after images were haunting. Vibrant young people transformed into vacant-eyed shells of themselves, their expressions flat and lifeless in the after documentation. "Your neural structure is perfect for complete transfer," Aiden commented, noticing Tyler's attention on the screens. "Natural empathy levels in the top percentile. The system will benefit greatly from your contribution." "It's not a contribution if it's taken by force," Tyler argued, pulling harder against his restraints. Aiden tilted his head, processing this statement with visible difficulty. "Force is a relative concept. You signed the participant agreement." "I never signed anything." "Your proxy consent was established through your mother's employment contract," Aiden recited mechanically. "Section 12, paragraph 4, provides legal authorization for familial integration." The same clause Elaine had mentioned to his mother. They had created a legal framework for this horror, buried in contracts that desperate people like his mother signed without fully understanding. Tyler was running out of time. Soon the technician would return with the protocols for his integration, and he'd be subjected to whatever nightmarish procedure had left Aiden a hollow echo of a person. The door remained his only viable escape route, but between Aiden and the guard outside, his chances seemed slim. Then again, Aiden's programming didn't seem to include security enforcement. He was here for orientation, not containment. Before Tyler could test this theory, emergency lights suddenly began flashing throughout the room. A shrill alarm pierced the air, and an automated voice announced, "Attention all personnel, fire alert in Sector C. Please proceed to designated evacuation points. This is not a drill." Aiden stood motionless, apparently unprogrammed for this contingency. "This interrupts the orientation protocol," he stated flatly, unperturbed by the blaring alarms. The technician rushed back into the room, clearly flustered. "Stay with the subject," he ordered Aiden sharply. "I need to check the lab equipment. If those sprinklers activate, we could lose months of data." He hurried out again without waiting for a response, leaving Tyler alone with Aiden as the alarm continued its ear-splitting wail. "Shouldn't we evacuate?" Tyler asked, trying to sound concerned rather than hopeful. "My instructions are to remain here," Aiden replied robotically. The door opened once more, and Tyler's heart sank, expecting the guard's return. Instead, Melissa slipped inside, her eyes wide with urgency. "I activated the alarm to find you," she whispered, hurrying to the chair and examining the restraints. "We have 5 minutes before they realize there's no actual fire." "My aunt doesn't know I discovered the truth," Melissa explained, working quickly to unlatch Tyler's restraints. "I've been using her trust to try to save the others." Tyler pulled his wrists free, rubbing the red marks where the restraints had dug into his skin. He hesitated, stepping away from Melissa. After everything that had happened, trust felt dangerous. "How can I believe you after you helped lure me into this trap?" Melissa's eyes flashed with hurt, but she continued disabling the monitoring equipment. "I never wanted you brought here. When I realized my aunt had targeted you, I tried to warn you without exposing myself." "That doesn't explain how you're involved in all this," Tyler countered, edging toward the door while keeping a wary distance from both Melissa and the still motionless Aiden. Melissa pulled out her phone and quickly navigated to the photo gallery. "Look," she said, holding it out. "This is my cousin Emma, before and after." Tyler reluctantly took the phone. The first image showed a vibrant teenage girl with bright eyes and an infectious smile, her arm thrown casually around Melissa's shoulders. The second photo, dated 6 months later, displayed the same girl, physically identical but fundamentally changed. Her eyes were vacant, her smile a practiced facsimile of the genuine expression from before. "Emma was brilliant," Melissa whispered, pain evident in her voice. "She was studying advanced mathematics, planning to attend MIT. Then Aunt Elaine recruited her for what she called a special mentorship program. 3 months later, she came home like this. She can still solve complex equations, but she doesn't feel anything anymore. No joy, no passion, no connection." The alarm continued blaring around them, red emergency lights casting strange shadows across Aiden's impassive face. "We need to move," Melissa urged. "Security will figure out the false alarm soon." "I can't leave without my mom," Tyler insisted. "She's being threatened. She didn't know what was really happening here." Melissa nodded grimly. "I believe you. My aunt is very careful about how she presents the program to outsiders, even staff. Let's find your mother first." They slipped into the hallway, which was filled with staff moving briskly toward evacuation points. In the controlled chaos, they blended in, 2 more teenagers following emergency protocols. "The administrative offices are this way," Melissa whispered, guiding Tyler through intersecting corridors as the evacuation announcement repeated overhead. The building's layout was disorienting, intentionally so, Tyler suspected, with identical hallways and minimal signage. Staff and participants moved in orderly lines toward the exits, their faces showing varying degrees of emotion, from genuine concern among newer arrivals to blank compliance from those who had clearly undergone the extraction process. As they turned a corner, Tyler pulled Melissa behind a large potted plant just in time to avoid being seen by 2 burly security guards passing by. "They'll be looking for you," Melissa whispered, "especially after the alarm. My aunt will assume you're trying to escape." "I am trying to escape," Tyler confirmed, "and I'm taking my mother with me." They continued more cautiously now, ducking into empty rooms when necessary to avoid security personnel. The alarm had created the perfect distraction, but it wouldn't last forever. "How did you find out what's really happening here?" Tyler asked as they waited for a group of technicians to pass. "Emma was different when she came home, but my aunt claimed it was just adjustment stress. Then I found Emma's journal. She'd kept notes during the early phases before they took everything from her. She wrote about the machines, the pain, how she could feel parts of herself disappearing." Melissa's voice cracked. "I started investigating, using my family connection to access facilities. I discovered this isn't just happening here. They have smaller centers in 3 other states. Hundreds of teens have gone through their program." "That's why you approached me after the bus incident?" She nodded. "I saw my aunt's reaction to you. That look, I'd seen it before with Emma. I knew you'd been marked." As they rounded another corner, they nearly collided with a figure coming from the opposite direction. Tyler froze, recognizing Jason's shocked face. "Tyler, what the hell?" Jason stammered, looking between Tyler and Melissa. "Why are you here? Why is there an alarm?" "Jason, what are you doing here?" Tyler demanded. "I followed you," Jason admitted, his usual arrogance replaced with genuine confusion. "After my dad showed up at school, something felt wrong. I've never seen him take an interest in any of my classmates before." Melissa grabbed both boys' arms, pulling them into an empty office as footsteps approached. "We don't have time for this," she hissed. "Security will be checking every room soon." Through the narrow window in the door, they watched as 2 guards passed, speaking into their radios. "Your dad is part of something terrible, Jason," Tyler said once the guards had moved on. "They're not recruiting students for some exclusive program. They're stealing parts of their brains to build AI." Jason's face contorted in disbelief. "That's insane. My dad runs a tech company, not some mad scientist lab." "It's true," Melissa insisted. "They call it neural extraction. They're mapping and removing the empathy centers from teenagers' brains to use as templates for artificial intelligence. My cousin was one of their victims." Jason shook his head. "No way. My dad wouldn't..." But doubt crept into his expression. "He's been obsessed with some breakthrough project, talking about revolutionary AI that would put Mercer Industries ahead of every competitor." "At what cost?" Tyler pressed. "Look around you. Have you seen the kids here? The ones who've gone through the program? They're like zombies." Understanding dawned slowly on Jason's face. "The Foundation. Dad's always been secretive about it. Said it was his legacy project." He ran a hand through his hair. "God, is that why he had me mess with you? Test your reactions?" "We need to find my mom," Tyler redirected. "She confronted your dad about what's happening, and I think she's in danger." Jason's expression hardened with sudden resolve. "I know the layout. Dad showed me the building plans last year, bragging about the security systems he'd implemented." "You can help us navigate?" Melissa asked, surprised. "I know all the shortcuts, including..." Jason moved to a wall panel and pressed a hidden switch, revealing a narrow service corridor. "Staff passages. Dad designed them for maintenance workers to move around without disrupting the participant experience." Tyler exchanged a glance with Melissa. If Jason was setting a trap, they were walking right into it, but they had few options and even less time. "Lead the way," Tyler decided. Jason guided them through the hidden passage, which bypassed the main hallways entirely. "There should be a monitoring station through here," he explained, stopping at a junction. "Security uses it to track movement throughout the building." He carefully opened a small access door, revealing a compact room filled with screens displaying various areas of the facility. A guard would normally be stationed here, but the fire alarm had emptied the post. The 3 teenagers slipped inside, quickly scanning the monitors for any sign of Tyler's mother. "There!" Melissa pointed to a screen showing a conference room where Sarah Anderson stood facing Elaine and Mr. Mercer, her posture rigid with anger. "She's in the executive conference room," Jason confirmed. "4th floor, East Wing." "How do we get there?" Tyler asked, studying the heated exchange playing out silently on the monitor. "Through these service corridors, up 2 levels, then across to the administrative section," Jason replied, already moving toward the exit. "But we need to hurry. Look." He pointed to another monitor showing security personnel moving systematically through corridors, checking rooms. One officer was speaking into a radio, his expression grim as he received instructions. "They're looking for us," Melissa concluded. "The fire alarm ruse has been discovered." They moved swiftly through the hidden passages, following Jason's lead. Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that he was making a terrible mistake trusting his former friend, but desperation overruled caution. "Why are you helping us?" Tyler finally asked as they climbed a narrow service stairwell. Jason paused briefly. "Because if what you're saying is true, then my father is not who I thought he was." His voice hardened. "And if he's hurting people, I won't be part of it." They reached the 4th floor, and Jason guided them toward the administrative wing. "The conference room should be just ahead," he whispered, peering through a small viewing panel in the service door. "Is there anyone in the hallway?" Melissa asked, anxiety evident in her voice. "Clear for now," Jason confirmed, carefully opening the door. but we need to move fast." They slipped into the main corridor, immediately hearing raised voices from behind the conference room's partially open door. "Not what you promised when you brought me into this project." Sarah's voice was strained with fury. "You said the research was non-invasive." "The methods evolved with the technology, Sarah," Mr. Mercer's cold voice replied. "Science requires adaptation. By destroying these children's minds? By experimenting on my son?" There was a sound of papers being thrown. "I found the reports you tried to hide from me. Acceptable neural degradation? Post-extraction personality modification? This is monstrous." "You knew the broader implications," Elaine's voice cut in smoothly. "And you've been compensated quite generously for your cooperation." Tyler crept closer to the door, Melissa and Jason close behind. Through the narrow opening, he could see his mother standing defiantly across the table from Elaine and Mr. Mercer, clutching what appeared to be research documents. "I'm taking Tyler and leaving," Sarah declared. "This ends now." Mr. Mercer's expression darkened. "I'm afraid that's not possible. Your son's neural architecture is precisely what our primary system needs for completion. The board has already approved the full extraction protocol." "You can't do this," Sarah whispered, horror filling her voice. "He's 17. I never consented to this level of intervention." "Actually," Elaine interjected, sliding a document across the table, "you did. Section 12, Paragraph 4 of your employment contract grants the Foundation complete research access to immediate family members in exchange for your financial accommodations." Tyler was about to burst through the door when the handle suddenly turned. The three teenagers barely managed to duck around the corner as two security officers entered the conference room. "Is there a problem here?" one asked. "No problem," Mr. Mercer replied smoothly. "Mrs. Anderson was just expressing some concerns about her son's integration schedule. Please escort her to her office so she can review the relevant documentation more thoroughly." Tyler was primed to interrupt this conversation, to reach his mother before they took further action. But as he stepped forward, Jason grabbed his arm and pulled him back around the corner. "Wait," Jason whispered urgently. "There's a better way." As the security officers led Sarah from the conference room, Tyler heard his mother's voice rise in desperate defiance. "Not if I've already sent the evidence to the police, and not if I take my son away from here right now," followed by the unmistakable sound of a gunshot. The sound of the gunshot propelled Tyler through the door before Jason could stop him. His heart hammered against his ribs as he burst into the conference room, expecting the worst. Instead, he found his mother clutching her bleeding arm, her face twisted in pain but very much alive. Elaine stood several feet away, a small pistol still aimed in Sarah's direction, her expression cold and calculating. "Mom!" Tyler cried out, rushing toward her. Elaine swung the gun toward him, her finger tightening on the trigger. "Stop right there!" "Hey!" Melissa's voice rang out from the doorway. The unexpected shout momentarily distracted Elaine, giving Jason the opportunity he needed. With surprising speed, he grabbed a heavy crystal award from a nearby shelf and hurled it across the room. The projectile missed Elaine by inches, but accomplished its purpose. Startled, she discharged the weapon again, the bullet embedding itself in the ceiling as Tyler launched himself forward, tackling her midsection. The gun fired once more during the struggle, but the shot went wide, shattering a glass panel on the far wall. "Get the gun!" Sarah shouted, pressing her hand against her wounded arm to stanch the bleeding. Tyler and Jason wrestled with Elaine, whose strength belied her slender frame. After a frantic struggle, they managed to wrench the weapon from her grasp. Melissa quickly retrieved it, holding it awkwardly away from her body as if it might bite. "Tie her up," Tyler gasped, breathing hard from the exertion. "There's computer cables under the conference table." While Jason held Elaine immobilized, Tyler and Melissa extracted several cables from the media console, using them to bind Elaine's wrists and ankles to a chair. She remained surprisingly composed, her eyes calculating even in defeat. "You have no idea what you're interfering with," she said coolly. "This work is more important than any individual." Tyler ignored her, rushing to his mother's side. "Mom, how bad is it?" Sarah winced as she pulled her hand away from the wound. "It's superficial, just a graze. I'll survive." Despite her reassurance, she was trembling, her face pale with shock and pain. "We need to get out of here," Tyler said, tearing a strip from his shirt to create a makeshift bandage for his mother's arm. "Not without evidence," Sarah insisted. "I sent all the files to our personal email before they caught me. Documents, reports on the side effects, everything. But we need to make sure it actually sent. The Foundation's network sometimes blocks external communication." Melissa hurried to the conference room computer. "Is it still logged in?" Sarah nodded. "Under my credentials. Check the sent items folder." While Melissa worked at the computer, Jason pushed a massive bookcase against the conference room door. "This won't hold them for long," he warned, hearing voices and footsteps in the corridor outside. "We need another exit." "The ventilation system," Sarah suggested, pointing to a detailed building schematic mounted on the wall. "It's designed to be accessible for maintenance. There's a main shaft that leads down to the lower levels. From there, we can reach the emergency exit near the laboratories." Tyler studied the diagram. "We're here," he said, pointing to their location in the administrative wing. "And the main lab complex is 2 levels below us." "The exit is here," Sarah indicated a point at the far end of the laboratory section. "It leads directly to the service road, behind the facility." A loud thump against the door emphasized their dwindling time. "They're trying to get in," Jason warned, bracing himself against the bookcase. "Email confirmed sent," Melissa announced, stepping away from the computer. "I forwarded copies to myself and Jason, too, just in case." Tyler located the access panel for the ventilation system behind a decorative wall panel. "Let's go," he urged, pulling it open to reveal a metal duct large enough for them to crawl through. Sarah went first, wincing as she maneuvered her injured arm, followed by Melissa. Tyler gestured for Jason to go next, but he shook his head. "I'll hold them off as long as I can," Jason insisted. "Give you guys time to get deeper into the system." "Jason, go!" Jason pushed Tyler toward the opening. "I'll catch up. My dad won't hurt me." Reluctantly, Tyler climbed into the duct. The metal was cool against his palms as he crawled after his mother and Melissa, the sounds of pounding on the conference room door fading behind them. They navigated through the cramped space, following Sarah's directions based on her knowledge of the building's layout. "There should be a vertical shaft coming up," she whispered ahead of them. "We'll need to climb down to the lower level." When they reached the vertical section, Tyler saw that metal rungs were embedded in the side, forming a ladder down the shaft. Sarah went first, carefully testing each rung despite her injury. Melissa followed, with Tyler taking up the rear. As they descended, the comforting hum of the ventilation system was suddenly interrupted by the sound of the access panel above them being wrenched open. "They're in the system," Tyler hissed. "We need to move faster." They quickened their pace, the metal rungs clanging beneath their feet. When they reached the bottom of the shaft, Sarah guided them into a horizontal duct that led toward the laboratory section. "The emergency exit is just past the main lab," she explained in a hushed voice. "But we'll have to cross through the open area. There's no direct duct access." They continued crawling until they reached another access panel. Sarah carefully pushed it open and peered out. "Clear for now," she whispered, sliding out into a dimly lit maintenance corridor. Tyler and Melissa followed, finding themselves in a narrow service hallway lined with pipes and electrical conduits. "This way," Sarah directed, moving swiftly despite her injury. "The main laboratory is through those doors." As they approached the double doors at the end of the service corridor, the facility's public address system crackled to life. "Attention all security personnel. Lockdown protocol initiated. Containment breach in administrative section." All exits sealed. Apprehend subjects alive and unharmed. They've locked down the building, Melissa said, her voice tight with fear. The emergency exit will still work, Sarah assured them. It's required by fire code to remain operational regardless of security protocols. Tyler pushed open one of the double doors, allowing them a view into the main laboratory space, and froze at the sight that greeted them. The vast room was filled with rows of glass chambers, each containing a teenager in a reclined position. Electrodes connected their heads to a complex network of cables that converged at the center of the room, feeding into what appeared to be an enormous quantum computer, its processing cores pulsing with blue-white light. "My God," Sarah breathed, horror evident in her voice despite her previous knowledge of the project. "I knew they were extracting neural patterns, but this is industrialized." Tyler counted at least 30 chambers, each containing a young person in various states of consciousness. Some appeared to be sleeping peacefully, while others stared vacantly at nothing, their expressions unnervingly similar to Aiden's. "They're all connected to the central system," Melissa observed, pointing to the displays above each chamber that showed neural activity in real time. "It's extracting from all of them simultaneously." As they cautiously entered the laboratory, staying close to the walls to avoid being seen by the few technicians monitoring the system, Tyler noticed a disturbing pattern in the displays. The neural activity graphs showed gradual diminishment, vibrant, complex patterns slowly reducing to simpler, more uniform ones as the extraction progressed. "We need to help them," Tyler insisted. "We can't. Not right now," Sarah replied, her voice pained with the admission. "The extraction process must be reversed carefully, or it could cause permanent damage. Our priority has to be getting out and exposing this place." They were halfway across the laboratory when the doors at the opposite end burst open. Mr. Mercer strode in, flanked by security personnel and dragging a struggling Jason with them. "Find them!" Mercer barked to the guards. "They can't have gone far." Tyler, his mother, and Melissa ducked behind a row of equipment, watching as Jason was forcibly sat in a chair. "I'm very disappointed, son," Mercer said coldly, "after everything I've built for our family, for your future." "This isn't scientific advancement, Dad," Jason shot back. "It's torture. You're destroying these kids' minds." Mercer's expression hardened. "Sometimes progress requires sacrifice. These participants are contributing to something far greater than themselves, the first truly empathic artificial intelligence. It will revolutionize everything from healthcare to global governance." "By stealing emotions from teenagers?" Jason looked at his father with disgust. "That's not sacrifice, that's theft." "It's necessary," Mercer insisted. "The adult brain lacks the neuroplasticity for successful extraction. Only adolescent neural structures can be properly mapped and transferred without total cognitive collapse." From their hiding place, Tyler caught his mother's eye. She gestured toward a door marked "Emergency Exit" at the far side of the laboratory. They would need to cross open space to reach it, but with the guards searching the perimeter, it might be their only chance. Tyler nodded his understanding, then whispered to Melissa, "When I create a distraction, run for that exit with my mom." "What distraction?" Melissa asked, but Tyler was already moving, slipping between equipment banks toward the central computer system. Remembering what he'd learned in AP chemistry about cooling systems, Tyler identified the liquid nitrogen tanks that regulated the quantum processor's temperature. A rapid temperature change would force an emergency shutdown without permanently damaging the system, or the teenagers connected to it. He waited until the guards moved to the far side of the laboratory, then darted to the control panel. With quick movements, he initiated the emergency venting sequence, causing alarms to blare throughout the facility. "Critical thermal event detected," announced an automated voice. "Core temperature rising. Emergency shutdown initiated." Chaos erupted as technicians rushed to stabilize the system. In the confusion, Tyler signaled to his mother and Melissa, who began making their way toward the emergency exit. Mr. Mercer immediately understood what was happening. "Stop him!" he shouted, pointing at Tyler as security personnel changed direction to intercept him. Tyler ran, dodging between equipment and chambers, trying to reach his mother and Melissa, who were now at the emergency door. As he passed one of the occupied chambers, he recognized the vacant face inside. Emma, Melissa's cousin. Making a split-second decision, Tyler hit the emergency release on her chamber. The glass panel slid open and the electrodes automatically detached. Emma's eyes fluttered, confusion replacing her vacant expression as she began to regain awareness. "Help her!" Tyler shouted to Melissa, who rushed back to support her disoriented cousin. By now, the central computer was emitting an ominous hum as its cooling systems failed. Display screens flickered throughout the laboratory, and several of the chambers automatically opened as safety protocols engaged, releasing more dazed teenagers from their neural connections. Tyler finally reached the emergency exit, where his mother was holding the door open. Security guards were closing in fast, and Mr. Mercer himself was approaching from another angle, his face contorted with rage. "You have no idea what you're destroying," Mercer shouted. "Years of research, the future of human-machine interface." "You mean years of exploitation," Sarah countered, her injured arm still dripping blood, but her voice steady. "It's over, Richard. The evidence is already out." As Tyler helped Melissa guide Emma through the door, Jason broke free from his captors and ran toward them. "Jason, stop," Mr. Mercer commanded. "Don't throw away everything I've built for you." Jason paused, looking back at his father. "You built a nightmare, Dad, and I sent everything to that reporter you hate so much." The revelation hit Mercer like a physical blow. "You did what?" The momentary distraction gave Jason the chance to run the remaining distance, joining the others at the emergency exit. As they rushed through, entering a concrete stairwell that led up to ground level, the facility's systems continued to deteriorate behind them. "The evidence is worthless without witnesses," Sarah explained as they climbed. "We need to get these kids to safety, then contact the authorities." When they reached the top of the stairs, they found themselves facing another secured door. Sarah swiped her badge, but the panel flashed red. "My access has been revoked," she realized with dismay. "Mine too, probably," Jason added after trying his visitor badge with the same result. Tyler examined the electronic lock. "Maybe we can override it somehow." Before anyone could suggest a solution, the door unexpectedly unlocked from the other side. As it swung open, they found themselves facing Elaine, somehow freed from her bonds, a security team positioned behind her. "I'm afraid your unauthorized tour ends here," she announced calmly. "You've caused quite enough disruption for one day." While Tyler and his mother run through the corridor that should lead them to the exit, a security door seals the path ahead and another behind them. Over the intercom, Elaine's cold voice announces, "Containment protocol activated. Think of this as your personal orientation session, Tyler." Red emergency lights cast an eerie glow through the sealed corridor as Tyler and his mother found themselves trapped between two security doors. The metallic thunk of the locks engaging had an air of finality that made Tyler's stomach drop. "Containment protocol activated," Elaine's voice announced through the intercom, her tone clinical and detached. "Think of this as your personal orientation session, Tyler." Sarah pressed her hand against the nearest door, wincing as the movement aggravated her gunshot wound. "There must be an override mechanism," she muttered, examining the control panel. Tyler joined her, searching for any vulnerability in the system. "Can you hack it? You work here." "My access has been revoked," Sarah replied, frustration evident in her voice. "They've locked us in completely." The intercom crackled again. "The so-called baby on the bus was quite advanced technology, Tyler," Elaine explained, as if they were having a casual conversation over coffee instead of a hostage situation. "A sophisticated monitoring device that captured your neurological responses in real time. Your empathic reactions were remarkable." Tyler's mind raced, processing this revelation. You mean there was never a real baby? The whole thing was staged? Of course, Elaine replied. We needed precise measurements of genuine empathic responses. The device monitored everything from your pupillary reactions to subtle changes in facial micro-expressions. Your decision to offer your seat triggered an empathic cascade that registered off our usual scales. Sarah leaned against the wall, her face pale from blood loss and anger. Why target teenagers specifically? Why not use adult volunteers? There was a pause before Elaine responded, as if she were considering how much to reveal. Neural plasticity, she finally answered, scientific passion evident in her voice. The adolescent brain has unparalleled adaptability. Adult neural patterns are too rigid, too established. And the emotional intensity of teenage experiences, it creates precisely the architecture we need for our system. Tyler examined the corridor while his mother kept Elaine talking. There had to be a way out. The emergency lights revealed an air vent near the ceiling, too small for an adult, but possibly large enough for him to squeeze through. You're experimenting on children without informed consent, Sarah accused, her voice rising. That violates every ethical principle in scientific research. Ethics evolve with scientific progress, Elaine countered smoothly. Your son's neural architecture could be the final piece we need. His empathic responses are uniquely suited to complete our core system. While his mother continued the verbal sparring match, drawing Elaine's attention, Tyler quietly moved a few feet down the corridor, positioning himself beneath the vent. He gestured to his mother, who gave an almost imperceptible nod of understanding. So what happens to the donors after you've taken what you want? Sarah demanded, deliberately raising her voice to cover any sound Tyler might make. Most subjects adapt successfully to the post-extraction state, Elaine replied with clinical detachment. Cognitive function remains largely intact, though emotional responses become simplified. Tyler slipped off his shoe and used it to loosen the screws holding the vent cover in place. As he worked, he could hear Elaine continuing her disturbingly enthusiastic explanation of the scientific breakthrough they were achieving. Simplified? Sarah repeated incredulously. You mean permanently damaged? I've seen the results, Elaine. Those children are shells of their former selves. A necessary sacrifice for advancement, Elaine insisted. Imagine an artificial intelligence with true emotional understanding, one that could transform healthcare, education, even governance. The contributions of a few dozen subjects pale in comparison to the global benefit. The final screw came loose, and Tyler carefully removed the vent cover, setting it silently on the floor. He glanced at his mother, who was now leaning heavily against the wall, her makeshift bandage soaked through with blood. You need medical attention, Tyler whispered, concerned by her increasingly pale complexion. Get through the vent, she urged quietly. Find help, I'll keep her talking. Tyler hesitated, unwilling to leave his mother behind. Go, she insisted. It's our only chance. With a reluctant nod, Tyler pulled himself up to the vent opening. The metal duct was narrower than he'd hoped, but he managed to squeeze his shoulders through. The cool, dusty air inside the ventilation system filled his lungs as he pulled himself completely into the duct. Behind him, he could hear his mother continuing her conversation with Elaine, deliberately asking detailed questions about the research to maintain the distraction. What neurological mechanisms allow for the transfer from human pathways to digital systems? Tyler began crawling through the duct, moving as quietly as possible. The metal creaked occasionally beneath his weight, but his mother's loud questioning seemed to be covering the noise. He followed the airflow, reasoning that fresh air would lead toward an exit, or at least to a larger junction where he might find another way out. After several minutes of uncomfortable crawling, he reached a junction where the duct split in multiple directions. Pausing to catch his breath, he tried to orient himself based on what he remembered of the facility's layout. One branch seemed to slope upward, potentially leading to an upper level or even outside. As he started to move again, he heard voices echoing through a nearby section of the ventilation system. Freezing in place, Tyler held his breath, straining to listen. "The entire West Wing has been compromised," a male voice reported. "Multiple subjects are in varying states of neural disconnection due to the emergency shutdown. How badly is the system damaged?" That was Mr. Mercer's voice, tense with anger. "The primary core is intact, but the emergency protocols released at least 15 subjects from their integration chambers. We're recapturing them now, but some appear disoriented, possibly recovering partial emotional function." Tyler changed direction, following the voices. If subjects were being released, perhaps Melissa and Jason had managed to help more teenagers escape. He might be able to join them, or at least find out what was happening elsewhere in the facility. The duct narrowed further, forcing Tyler to wriggle forward on his stomach. The voices grew louder as he approached a vent cover that overlooked what appeared to be a security control room. Through the slats, he could see multiple monitors displaying various areas of the facility. One screen showed the corridor where he'd left his mother. She was now sitting on the floor, her back against the wall, still engaging Elaine through the intercom but visibly weakening from blood loss. Another monitor displayed the main laboratory, where security personnel were attempting to round up confused teenagers who had been released from their chambers during the system shutdown. On a third screen, Tyler spotted Melissa and Jason, along with several disoriented teens, including Emma, running through a service corridor. They were alive and free, at least for the moment. Security personnel appeared to be closing in on them from multiple directions. A fourth monitor showed Mr. Mercer himself, standing in what looked like a secondary control room, barking orders at technicians who were frantically working to restore the system. "Re-establish the neural connections for any subjects still in their chambers," Mercer commanded. "Priority on the Phase 3 subjects. They're too far into the extraction process to risk disconnection." Tyler watched in horror as technicians rushed to reconnect teenagers to the machines. On the screen, he could see young people weakly struggling against the staff, who were forcing them back into the chambers. He needed to do something, not just escape himself, but somehow help the others. Scanning the control room below, Tyler noticed that only 2 security officers were monitoring the systems. If he could create a distraction, perhaps he could access the controls and help more subjects escape. Moving carefully to prevent the duct from creaking, Tyler continued forward until he found another junction. One branch led toward what appeared to be the exterior wall of the building, possibly his best chance at escape. The other led deeper into the facility, potentially toward the secondary control room where he'd seen Mercer. Tyler hesitated, torn between self-preservation and the chance to help the others. His promise to his mother urged him toward escape, but the images of teenagers being forced back into those terrible machines pulled him in the opposite direction. Making his decision, Tyler turned toward the interior of the building. He would try to reach the secondary control room and find a way to disrupt the system again, this time more permanently. The ventilation shaft gradually widened as he approached what must be a central air handling unit. The sound of large fans humming in the distance guided him forward. Eventually, the duct opened into a maintenance area large enough for him to stand upright. Tyler carefully lowered himself from the duct into the maintenance room, which was filled with climate control equipment and electrical panels. A door at the far end appeared to lead back into the main facility. As he approached the door, Tyler heard footsteps on the other side. He quickly ducked behind a large air handler, just as the door opened and a maintenance worker entered, carrying a toolbox. The man didn't notice Tyler as he moved to one of the electrical panels and began working. Tyler remained hidden, watching carefully and considering his options. The worker's badge might give him access to other areas of the facility. Taking a deep breath, Tyler picked up a wrench from a nearby workbench and stepped forward. "I'm sorry about this," he said, before swinging the wrench toward the worker's head. The man turned at the sound of Tyler's voice, raising his arm instinctively. The wrench struck his forearm instead of his head, causing him to cry out in pain rather than lose consciousness as Tyler had intended. "Security breach in Maintenance Section C," the worker shouted into his radio before Tyler could stop him. Knowing he had only seconds before security arrived, Tyler abandoned stealth for speed. He shoved the injured worker aside and ran through the door, finding himself in another corridor. Emergency lights flashed, and alarm klaxons blared throughout the facility. "All security personnel," announced a computerized voice over the PA system. "Subject Tyler Anderson located in Maintenance Section C. Approach with caution. Subject is considered high value and must be captured undamaged." Tyler sprinted down the corridor, remembering Jason's description of the building layout. If he could reach the central atrium, he might be able to find Melissa and the others, or at least create enough chaos to help them escape. As he rounded a corner, Tyler came face to face with a technician who was turning in his direction at the sound of running footsteps. Their eyes met, the man's face paling with surprise. Then, recognizing Tyler, he said something that froze the blood in Tyler's bones. "Ah, the perfect subject arrived on his own. We've had your chamber prepared for weeks." The technician's eyes widened with professional excitement as he recognized Tyler. "The neural mapping team has been waiting for you. Your chamber's been prepped for weeks." Tyler stumbled backward, mind racing for a response. Before he could formulate one, the technician lunged forward, attempting to grab his arm. Tyler's instincts took over. He ducked under the man's reach and shoved him hard against the wall, then sprinted in the opposite direction. "Subject sighted in corridor B7, the technician shouted into his radio, "heading toward the central hub." Tyler ran blindly, following emergency exit signs that he prayed would lead him to freedom, or at least to his mother. The facility had transformed into a labyrinth of identical corridors under the pulsing red emergency lights, disorienting him further with each turn. He skidded to a halt as a door to his right burst open, revealing a sealed control room with multiple screens. Through the glass, he spotted his mother still trapped in the containment corridor, now slumped against the wall, her face alarmingly pale. On another screen, he could see Melissa and Jason herding a group of dazed teenagers toward what appeared to be a loading dock. Security personnel were closing in from multiple directions. Tyler needed to reach them, but first he had to free his mother. The door to the control room required a security badge, but in his desperation, Tyler remembered something from his childhood. When his father had locked himself out of his home office, he'd used a credit card to slip the latch. With trembling hands, Tyler pulled out his school ID card, the same one Elaine had returned to him after the test, and worked it into the narrow gap beside the electronic lock. After several breathless attempts, the door clicked open. Tyler slipped inside, locking it behind him. The room was empty, the staff likely responding to the multiple emergencies throughout the facility. Tyler scanned the control panel, overwhelmed by the array of buttons and switches. Labels like Neural Integration Grid and Empathic Transfer Protocols made his stomach churn. Finally, he spotted a section marked Security Containment, with a digital map showing active containment zones, including the corridor where his mother was trapped. He pressed the release button for her section, watching anxiously as the screen processed his command. A message flashed. "Administrative override required." "Damn it!" Tyler slammed his fist against the console. He needed a higher security clearance. A blinking light caught his attention, an incoming transmission on the intercom system. He hesitated, then pressed the button to accept. "I know you're in there, Tyler." Elaine's voice filled the room, eerily calm despite the chaos engulfing the facility. "Impressive work making it to a control station. Your problem-solving abilities are precisely why we selected you." Tyler glanced at the security camera mounted in the corner of the room. She could see him. "Let my mother go," he demanded, staring directly into the camera. "She needs medical attention." "I'll make you a deal," Elaine replied smoothly. "Return to the integration chamber voluntarily, and I'll ensure your mother receives the best care. Resist and, well, containment corridors aren't equipped with medical supplies. Tyler looked back at the monitor showing his mother. Her eyes were closed now, her breathing shallow. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, playing for time while scanning the control panel for any other options. "What could possibly justify what you're doing to these kids?" "Perspective, Tyler." Elaine sighed, as if explaining something obvious to a child. Humanity faces existential challenges: climate collapse, resource depletion, social fragmentation. Traditional AI lacks the emotional intelligence to help us navigate these crises humanely. But with your contribution, with the emotional architecture we can extract from minds like yours, we can create systems that understand human suffering, that can guide policy with genuine empathy. By stealing empathy from teenagers? Tyler couldn't keep the disgust from his voice. By transferring it to systems that can help billions, Elaine corrected. A few dozen subjects experiencing emotional flattening versus the potential extinction of our species. The mathematics of ethics is quite clear. As she spoke, Tyler noticed a blinking emergency override button beneath a plastic cover. If he could just reach it without being obvious. "The baby was never real, was it?" he asked, taking a casual step toward the override switch. "An elegant piece of technology," Elaine confirmed, pride evident in her voice. "It monitored your pupillary dilation, micro-expressions, heart rate, even sweat composition, all indicators of genuine empathic response. Your reaction was particularly strong. Family history often predisposes certain neural pathways. Your father had similar patterns, according to your mother's medical history." Tyler froze. "You accessed my father's medical records?" "We access everything relevant to our subjects," Elaine explained matter-of-factly. "Your father's death created optimal conditions for empathic development. Grief often deepens those neural pathways significantly." A cold fury washed over Tyler. They had been watching him since his father died, waiting for his grief to make his brain more valuable to them. "Your mother's condition is deteriorating, Tyler," Elaine noted, her voice now carrying an edge of impatience. "I suggest you make your decision quickly." Tyler glanced at the screen showing Melissa and Jason. They had reached the loading dock, but were now trapped between security teams approaching from both directions. The teenagers they'd freed huddled behind them, confused and frightened. In another part of the facility, Tyler could see Mr. Mercer directing the recapture operation, his face contorted with rage as he shouted orders at security personnel. Tyler's eyes returned to his mother's monitor. He couldn't let her die, but surrendering meant becoming like Aiden, an empty shell devoid of emotion. His gaze fell on something he hadn't noticed before, a small device lying on the control panel. It looked identical to the baby Elaine had described, a sophisticated monitoring unit disguised as an infant. Someone had placed it here for analysis or reprogramming. A desperate plan formed in Tyler's mind. "Okay," he said, shoulders slumping in apparent defeat. "I'll do it. Just help my mom first." "A wise decision," Elaine replied, satisfaction evident in her voice. "Remain where you are. Security will escort you to the preparation room, and I'll personally see to your mother's medical care." As soon as the transmission ended, Tyler lunged for the override button, smashing the plastic cover with his fist and slamming the red button beneath it. Alarms blared even louder throughout the facility as an automated voice announced, "Emergency override activated. All containment protocols disengaged. This is not a drill." On the monitors, Tyler watched security doors throughout the facility slide open, including the one trapping his mother. Simultaneously, he grabbed the monitoring device from the desk, examining it quickly to confirm his suspicions. It was indeed a sophisticated recording and transmission unit, and if Elaine had been telling the truth, it was still actively monitoring emotional responses. Tyler held the device close to his face, Elaine Winters and Richard Mercer are conducting illegal human experimentation, extracting neural patterns from teenagers without consent, causing permanent psychological damage, he stated clearly, knowing the device would be recording and likely transmitting to the Foundation's secure servers. They've injured my mother, Sarah Anderson, and are holding dozens of teenagers against their will. This is happening at the Mercer Foundation Research Facility. On the security monitors, Tyler could see confusion spreading through the building as containment doors opened everywhere. In the corridor where his mother had been trapped, 2 staff members were now helping her to her feet, responding to the medical emergency despite the chaos. Tyler had only moments before security would reach the control room. He looked frantically for a way out, spotting another door at the back of the room. It opened into a service corridor that, according to the evacuation map posted inside, led toward the loading docks where he'd last seen Melissa and Jason. He sprinted down the corridor, still clutching the monitoring device and continuing to detail the Foundation's crimes into it. They target teenagers specifically because our brains are more adaptable. They're stealing our capacity for emotion to build their AI. The subjects are left emotionally damaged, like Aiden Hansen, Emma Chen, and dozens of others. The service corridor eventually joined a main hallway near the loading area. Tyler could hear shouting ahead, both orders from security personnel and the panicked voices of the teenagers trying to escape. He rounded the final corner to find a standoff. Jason and Melissa stood protectively in front of about a dozen dazed teenagers, including Emma, while security guards approached from both directions, some with tranquilizer guns raised. "Stop!" Tyler shouted, holding the monitoring device high. "Everything you're doing is being recorded and transmitted. Let them go." The guards hesitated, uncertain how to respond to this new development. "Tyler," Melissa called, relief evident in her voice. "Where's your mom?" "Getting help," he replied, edging toward the group while keeping his eyes on the guards. "These kids need medical attention too. Real medical attention, not more integration." The standoff might have continued indefinitely if the loading dock door hadn't suddenly opened behind them. Daylight streamed in as a delivery truck backed toward the platform, its driver unaware of the drama unfolding inside. "Go!" Tyler shouted to Melissa and Jason. "Get them out!" Jason reacted instantly, helping the disoriented teenagers toward the truck. The guards moved to intercept them, but Tyler stepped between them, still recording. "Every one of your faces is being transmitted right now," he warned. "You want to be identified as participants in criminal human experimentation?" The threat worked, at least momentarily. The guards hesitated long enough for most of the teenagers to reach the loading dock. Tyler was backing toward freedom when the far door burst open and Mr. Mercer stormed in, followed by more security personnel. "Stop them!" he roared, his face contorted with rage. "No one leaves this facility!" Tyler turned to run, but came face to face with a security guard who grabbed him roughly by the arm. He struggled, still clutching the monitoring device, desperate to reach the others, who were now climbing into the back of the bewildered delivery driver's truck. "Let go of me!" Tyler shouted, kicking at his captor's shins. "The program cannot be compromised," Mr. Mercer declared, striding forward. "Too much is at stake." Just as hope seemed lost, the security guard holding Tyler suddenly collapsed, revealing Jason standing behind him with a fire extinguisher in his hands. "Come on!" Jason yelled, grabbing Tyler's arm and pulling him toward the loading dock. They sprinted for the truck where Melissa was helping the last teenager inside. Freedom was just steps away when Mr. Mercer pulled something from his pocket, a small black device with a red button. "If I can't have the project," he snarled, his finger hovering over the button, "no one will." Tyler froze, recognizing the device as some kind of detonator. After everything they'd been through, had Mercer wired the building to explode rather than let his secrets escape? Jason stepped forward, staring directly into his father's eyes. "It's over," he said with surprising calmness, and then did something no one expected. He simply embraced the stunned man, while discreetly removing the detonator from his trembling hand. The emergency vehicle's flashing lights painted Tyler's neighborhood in surreal pulses of red and blue. 6 weeks had passed since their escape from the Mercer Foundation, yet the aftermath continued to unfold like ripples in a disturbed pond. Sitting on his front porch steps, Tyler watched as another news van parked across the street, a reporter and cameraman emerging with practiced urgency. "They're back again," his mother commented, carefully lowering herself beside him, her arm still in a sling but healing well. "I thought they'd have moved on to a new scandal by now," Tyler shrugged. "Hard to compete with tech billionaires' neural harvesting program exposed. It has everything: evil corporations, mind control, teenage heroes." "And one very brave whistleblower," Sarah added, gently bumping her shoulder against his. "I'm sorry I ever got involved with them, Tyler. I should have asked more questions, looked beyond the surface." "We both know why you took that job," Tyler replied, thinking of the mounting medical bills after his father's death, the threat of losing their home. "You were just trying to keep us afloat." Their conversation paused as a black SUV with government plates pulled into their driveway. Agent Ramirez, now a familiar face, stepped out and approached the porch. "Mrs. Anderson, Tyler," she greeted them with a professional nod. "I have updates on the case I thought you'd want to hear in person." Inside, seated around their kitchen table, Agent Ramirez opened her laptop. "The federal investigation is proceeding smoothly. Richard Mercer and Elaine Winters remain in custody, denied bail due to flight risk and the severity of the charges." "What about the other staff members?" Sarah asked, wrapping her hands around a mug of tea. "Most of the technical team is cooperating in exchange for immunity," Ramirez explained. "They're helping us understand the full extent of the neural extraction technology. The evidence you provided was crucial, especially the recording from the monitoring device." Tyler felt a chill remembering the baby and how he'd turned Elaine's surveillance tool against her. "Have they found all the kids?" Ramirez's expression softened slightly. "We've identified 127 teenagers who underwent varying degrees of the procedure across all 4 facilities. All have been removed from Foundation control and are receiving specialized care." "And their recovery?" Sarah pressed, the medical professional in her evident in the question. "Varied," Ramirez admitted. "Those who underwent only preliminary mapping are showing excellent progress. Those who experienced complete extraction—" She hesitated. "The damage appears more permanent, but new therapeutic approaches are being developed based on the Foundation's own research. There's hope." Tyler thought of Aiden, his vacant eyes and mechanical speech. Would he ever regain what was taken from him? "The Mercer Foundation's assets have been frozen," Ramirez continued, "and the court is establishing a victims' compensation fund. All affected teenagers will receive full college scholarships and ongoing medical support." "What about the AI?" Tyler asked. "The one they were building with parts of us?" Ramirez's expression turned grim. "The core system has been secured by the Department of Defense for analysis. The technology, despite its horrific development methods, represents a significant breakthrough in emotional artificial intelligence. The ethical implications are being debated at the highest levels." "They should destroy it," Tyler said firmly. "It was built on stolen minds." "That may yet happen," Ramirez acknowledged. "For now, it's contained." After the agent departed, Tyler retreated to his room, overwhelmed by the conversation. He sat at his desk, staring at the college acceptance letters he'd received the previous week, including one with a full scholarship from the newly established Reclamation Foundation, created by families of the affected teenagers. His phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. "Memorial Park in an hour? Everyone's gathering." Everyone had become their shorthand for the small group of survivors who had escaped together. Jason, Melissa, Emma, still recovering but making progress, and several others who'd found solidarity in their shared trauma. They met regularly, supporting each other through nightmares, therapy sessions, and the ongoing media frenzy. At the park, Tyler found them at their usual spot near the pond. Jason was the first to notice his arrival, raising a hand in greeting. Their friendship, once destroyed by high school politics, had been reforged through shared adversity, though not without awkward moments as they navigated their new dynamic. "The lawyers think my dad will take a plea deal," Jason announced as Tyler joined them. 20 years minimum. "How are you feeling about that?" Melissa asked gently. Jason shrugged, tossing a stone into the water. "Conflicted. He's still my father, but what he did, what he was willing to do to all of us." He shook his head. "Sometimes I wonder if I inherited whatever's broken in him." "The fact that you worry about that proves you didn't," Tyler assured him. Melissa nodded in agreement, then gestured to Emma, who sat slightly apart from the group, staring at the ripples in the pond. She remembered our 10th birthday party today. It just came back to her during breakfast. The cake, the matching dresses, everything. Tyler studied Emma's profile. Unlike Aiden, who had undergone complete extraction, Emma's procedure had been interrupted midway. Her recovery followed an unpredictable pattern. Blank emptiness punctuated by sudden recoveries of emotional memory, each one celebrated as a victory. "The neurologists say it's like her brain is finding new pathways around the damaged areas," Melissa explained, hope evident in her voice. "Each memory that returns strengthens those new connections." Their conversation turned to more immediate matters. The upcoming congressional hearings where Tyler, his mother, and several others would testify, the documentary film crew requesting interviews, and the research teams developing rehabilitation protocols based on the Foundation's own technology. "They're calling it neural pathway reconstruction," Melissa explained, showing them an article on her tablet. "Using modified versions of the extraction technology to stimulate regrowth of empathic neural networks." "Ironic that the cure comes from the same place as the damage," Jason commented. As afternoon faded toward evening, the group gradually dispersed. Tyler remained by the pond, joined by Melissa after she'd helped Emma to her waiting mother's car. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't given up your seat that day?" she asked, watching the last sunlight glimmer on the water. Tyler considered the question carefully. Someone else would have been targeted eventually, but they might not have escaped, might not have exposed everything. He paused. "I don't regret it despite everything. That moment was genuinely me, not something they programmed or manipulated." Melissa nodded thoughtfully. "When I first realized what my aunt was doing, I felt so complicit. I should have seen it sooner, said something earlier." "You did what you could," Tyler assured her. "We all did." They walked together toward the park exit, a comfortable silence between them that required no filling. The evening news played on a television, visible through a cafe window as they passed. Footage of the Mercer Foundation facility being repurposed as a rehabilitation center for the affected teenagers. Back home, Tyler found his mother sitting on the porch again, gazing at the stars emerging in the twilight sky. "Good session?" she asked as he joined her. "Yeah." Emma remembered her 10th birthday party. "They're counting it as progress." Sarah smiled softly. "The brain's capacity for adaptation is remarkable. Given time and the right support, many of these kids will recover significant function." "But not all," Tyler acknowledged quietly. "No," his mother admitted. "Not all, but we'll keep fighting for every possible improvement." They sat together in companionable silence, watching as the first evening star appeared. Tyler thought about all they'd been through, all that still lay ahead, testimony, publicity, the long process of healing. "I've been thinking about changing my major," he said suddenly. "Instead of engineering, maybe neuroscience or psychology. Something that could help people like Aiden and Emma." Sarah squeezed his hand. "Your father would be proud of the man you're becoming." The following morning brought a special delivery, an official-looking envelope containing details of his scholarship and a handwritten note from Dr. Laurel Chen, Melissa's mother, who now headed the rehabilitation program at the repurposed foundation facility. "Your courage and compassion have opened a path for many," she'd written. "We would be honored to have you join our research team as an intern next summer if you're interested." Tyler read the note twice, a sense of purpose solidifying within him. The neural extraction technology had been designed to steal empathy from teenagers and transfer it to machines. Perhaps it could be redesigned to help restore what was taken, to give back what had been stolen. His phone chimed with a campus tour reminder. Though classes wouldn't start for months, the university was holding a special orientation for scholarship recipients from the Reclamation Foundation. The campus bus was crowded when it arrived, students jostling for seats as they boarded. Tyler found himself standing near the back, surrounded by chattering freshmen eager to begin their college experience. At the third stop, an elderly woman boarded, struggling slightly with a heavy bag. Without hesitation, Tyler offered his recently acquired seat. "Please, ma'am, take my spot." The woman looked up at him with clear, intelligent eyes that crinkled at the corners as she smiled. As she settled into the seat, she said casually, "Don't worry, dear, I'm not recruiting anyone today." Tyler froze momentarily. "I'm just Dr. Laurel Chen, visiting my daughter Melissa. I believe you know her well."